Hi, welcome to Behind the Unicorn. I'm Emily Davis. This is my very first podcast episode. I'm really excited that you're here. And Behind the Unicorn is going to be a podcast that's really focused on pulling back the curtain of nonprofits, really looking into the real deal of both how nonprofits run and how nonprofits should run. The podcast is going to be a good deal of my sharing my experience, my advice, my perspective, and I'm also going to be joined by guests doing the same. In this very first episode, I wanted to take the time to introduce the podcast and to introduce myself to set a foundation and context for the podcast moving forward. I'll be sharing a lot of my background and my experience throughout these episodes. They are really meant to be the real deal about not for profit businesses. And I should say right off the bat that my philosophy about nonprofits is that they are businesses. They are a very different kind of business than the for profit world, but they are incredibly important and, frankly, incredibly complex. And so we'll be talking about everything that we can possibly talk about, from strategic planning to nonprofit startup to funding to program design and evaluation. And when I say we, I mean me and my guests, not my multiple personalities. Although I do have a lot of enthusiasm that and a lot of great experiences and feelings to go with this work. I think it's helpful to share some background for folks who don't know me. My background is really entirely in nonprofits, with a few exceptions here and there. I have been a founder of nonprofits. I've been an executive director. I've been a staff member. I've been a board member. I've been a grant maker, a volunteer. And all of that is just to say that I've had a lot of different perspectives and experiences that inform where I'm coming from in these conversations. Today, I am a consultant. My consulting company is called Emily Davis Consulting. I'm a solo female entrepreneur, and I work primarily with nonprofits, small businesses, and philanthropists. A number of years ago, I wrote a book called Fundraising in the Next Generation, which is all about multi-generational philanthropy. And so that's a lot of where my work in philanthropy is connected. And I am essentially a great big board governance nerd. So that's primarily where I spend a lot of my time consulting, is doing and working within all things board governance, from training people on board roles and responsibilities to strategic planning, CEO assessment, all different kinds of things related to board governance. But it got my start when I was really young. My sister and I stuffed goodie bags for a charity golf tournament that my parents led, and worked registration tables and did all the things that go with special events, and eventually actually learned fairly quickly the low return on investment on special event fundraising. And then my earliest career was in women's health and ending violence against women. And in those experiences, I saw a lot of ways to sort of not run not for profit businesses, and thought there's probably got to be a better way to do this. And that's how I ended up going back to graduate school and getting my master's in nonprofit management. And that's actually where I fell into consulting, was back in 2006. So that was great, is understanding how to pair business acumen with not-for-profit practices. Really, really important, really helpful. And now I work primarily with social justice organizations in the nonprofit space. My background being in activism really guides me in that direction. And I am a big proponent of the board source model in terms of board governance. I find it, and also resources from folks like Alice Cochran, who wrote Roberta's Rules of Order, participatory decision making, things like that. So you'll hear me refer to a lot of that. So again, this podcast is meant to be a behind the scenes look at the nonprofit business world, according to me and my guests. It's really going to be the nitty gritty, and we're not going to hold back from being honest. There'll be strong opinions, but we'll also have a lot of fun. The goal is to have a good time and to share our experiences. I think now more than ever, I feel like we say that all the time in the nonprofit world. Now more than ever, we need, fill in the blank. But now more than ever, I think we need community and connection. And I've had this podcast ready to go for probably about 4 years now, but have waited to launch it. The timing just hasn't been right. Or if I'm being really honest, I had a lot of fears and imposter syndrome, and it's just not the time to let that stop me or anybody else. And so I'm using the platform to share my voice and experiences and that of others in a way to be of service to the greater nonprofit and philanthropic communities. And so we're going to be starting with topics like board governance. We'll have case study discussions. I would love for people to pose questions or specific stories from their nonprofit experience that maybe we can talk about, or I can answer questions about. We want you to learn from others' challenges, successes, and experiences as a way to avoid pitfalls, to sort of crowdsource any great ideas and thinking, and have an opportunity to help your organization, whether you're board, staff, volunteer, set your organization up for success and really set it apart from any other. Some of the podcast episodes are going to be quick bites. Some of them are going to be longer and more involved. I'm planning on, the goal is to do a podcast episode twice a month, but you will have to watch and stay tuned for how that shakes out. And these will be available, the podcast will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and hopefully growing from there. So again, going into these conversations, I think it's important to remember that my philosophy for all nonprofits is that they are in fact businesses. They are just a different kind of business than for-profit businesses. The nonprofit sector is a huge part of our economy and really important. And obviously, if you work in the nonprofit space, you know that nonprofits are under attack. We are in the crosshairs. And so it's really important to understand that nonprofit is not, it's a tax status. It's not a business model, right? And so we need to be the best we can to serve our missions and our communities. There's a lot of mystery behind the inner workings of nonprofits, especially if you're new to nonprofits or starting a nonprofit. A lot of people, don't get involved with not-for-profit businesses because of that mystery, especially at the board level or financial level. And we really need people to be a part of nonprofits in order to do the work that we need in our communities. So again, we're going to take a really honest look about the innards of nonprofits. And listen, nonprofits, this is not all about unicorns and rainbows. We're really going to talk about behind, the sort of do-gooder, altruistic culture that nonprofits really live in, and look at all the things that make nonprofits tick and work well. So I hope you'll join me for upcoming episodes, but this is just a short little clip to get us started. Thanks so much. I cannot wait to talk to you more. See you soon.